You are not ready for this build. Welcome to what might just be Sorcerer's best build of the season, and therefore the best build of the season. Hello, my fellow sorcerers, and welcome. I have a treat for you today. I have been testing, theory crafting non-stop, barely slept, and I am so happy that I did, because the results are, and you know I don't say this often, nutty cuckoo bananas. Seriously, I can't overstress how ridiculous this creation is. It's not a frozen orb build, this is a lightning spear build. And seriously, look at what is happening. I have 32 conjurations out, most of which are the lightning spears. This build has 9 ranks of conjuration mastery. That is nearly 300% damage increase just rolling at all times. Oh my god, look at the cooldown, or lack thereof, of lightning spear and icy blades. You will be pressing them like they're just normal spammable skills as your main source of everything. Frozen orbs only on the bar for like the start of the fight when you cast it twice to get the chain going. And once that chain is going, you have an infinite self-perpetuating lightning barrage of nuclear death automatically tracking and killing everything on screen with the most monstrous crits you've ever seen. 100% crit chance, over 1000% crit damage, and you just sort of stand there, immortally unkillable, with endless barriers because nothing has any cooldowns, permanent unstable currents, and you just sort of automatically win? Like, the most important content to do right now is tier 7 Abyssal Hordes as efficiently as possible, as that's the sweet spot reward to time ratio. This, as you can see, just autopilots it. It beat the tier 7 council in like less than a minute. It's so funny. Hell, it can beat a tier 8 just fine too. Though the version here was an earlier one that I was still testing with, so a weaker one, and it still beat it. Also, a pit 101 in less than 2 minutes. The boss taking less than a minute to kill. Like, that is some serious boss damage for what was something that people were worried about way back wouldn't have enough boss damage. In fact, I have not seen anyone explore this aspect that will be building into Lightning Spear, the new buff splintering energy, in the way that I have here to solve the problem of boss damage, which is the build's main weakness. Because in terms of pure mobbing, fighting down hordes of trash like Abyssal Hordes, there is essentially nothing else that can rival this in the game, because it's automatic. The lightning spears just go everywhere and kill everything, and that is glorious. Honestly, the hardest part about playing this build is how fast you have to mash the lightning spear and icy blades key. Oh, so, yeah, look, I cannot overstate this, I cannot oversell this. This is premium, it is supreme, it is the build, and it's going to take some serious beating, if that ever even does happen, for the meta to shift away from it. That said, of course, this is the season of Sorcerer builds. There is still, like, 10 ridiculously strong that can do everything you need it to do Sorcerer builds, but I always want to make my second or third-ish build of the season what I believe to be the build of the season, and that's what I have tried to do here. I can't overstate how long I have spent testing this. In any case, what is this? I want to start by actually talking about what's happening here. Meet, then, the star of the show, aspect of splintering energy. I don't even have a maxed one, by the way, and the build is still as strong as it is, so imagine when I do. In any case, this was buffed and changed for Season 5. So now, when you crit with your Lightning Spear, which is every time you do damage with it in this build, you will do an extra bit of damage to the target and 5 other enemies, which is why it's so good at, well, waves of enemies. Then that damage is ramped up by your critical strike damage bonus in a near-ish 1-to-1 way. So the kind of general ethos here is fairly simple, right? We want to summon as many lightning spears as possible all the time, we want 100% crit chance ideally, and then we want as much critical critical strike damage as possible. Those are the 3 goals. But how best to achieve that? So of course we've got raw cooldown reduction. Get Lightning Spear off cooldown as often as possible. That's all well and good, and we can do that in a number of ways. We also have the general, just spawn as many Lightning Spears as we can. One of the easiest ways to do that is the enchantment of it. So pick up a Crackling Energy, 10% chance for a Lightning Spear to spawn, or indeed Unstable Currents. Random Shock skill means randomly a Lightning Spear can be summoned. That, inherent combination of Crackling Energy and Unstable Currents spam shock skills to hopefully get Lightning Spear is kind of what influenced the initial testing that we were all doing with Spark. It both generates Crackling Energy, it's incredibly fast casting, you can blast off a load of them during Unstable Currents, that's all well and good. Then there's also sort of the outside possibility of, overflowing energy, to use that Crackling Energy to pulse and reduce the cooldown of both your Teleport, Unstable Currents, and Lightning Spear. Though, this build has, as you've seen, 0-second cooldown on Lightning Spear, permanent Unstable Currents, even without this, without Crackling Energy, without the Lightning enchant. And of course, as you well know, I have decided to go the Frozen Orb path. It summons Conjurations, right? Which means it's got a 1 in 3 chance when it happens, and it's been buffed to happen more often, to summon a Lightning Spear. But the thing is, we don't actually, as I said, really cast the Frozen Orb. We only really have it here as, filler if we are waiting a little bit for a cooldown and at the start of the fight. When we get everything actually flowing, well, as you can see, the cooldowns really start to power down, and the main reason for that is the unique that powers it. I've barely done anything, look, and we're on no cooldowns on our conjuration. Well, for the most part. Obviously, I'm not doing much else, so eventually the chain will run out. In any case, that is, of course, Fractured Winterglass. You now have a much higher chance for Frozen Orb to spawn a conjuration, and the fact that I'm not using a max roll one like this versus the one I do have on is quite ridiculous, but you'll see why. But then, more importantly, conjuration cooldowns are reduced by 0.3 seconds when Frozen Orb explodes. And you'll notice that when Frozen Orb explodes, doesn't stipulate where the Frozen Orb has come from. So your conjurations launching orbs that then explode trigger this cooldown reduction, which is why it's this self-perpetuating infinite loop, which lets us play essentially a really powerful Frozen Orb build, because we're not skimping on the raw damage our actual Frozen Orbs are going to be doing. They're still hitting a nice, respectable, million damage, but then on top of that, we have fully amped Lightning Spear and that splintering energy aspect. So then when it comes to your gearing, well, we have to have the Fractured Winterglass in the next slot, and then based on the uniques we have to use, we only have 2 other aspect spaces, so we have to put it on our weapons, and because the Lightning Spear Splintering Energy is doing the majority of our damage, we obviously want it on a staff to 2 times the damage, because we don't actually need that much cast speed, because we're not just spamming Frozen Orb, we're just pressing Lightning Spear and Ice Blades when they come off cooldown. So we essentially get the double aspect strength for free with the staff. Oh, and to add to all that, the reason that I have managed to elegantly solve Unstable Currents having 100% uptime even without playing with Crackling Energy and Overflowing Energy is the other new aspect, Orange Herald. Lucky Hit, chance to reduce your ultimate skill by 2 seconds. We have a lot of Lucky Hit in this build, and we have a lot of skills flying around triggering this, which essentially just powers it down by itself, and it's why we do just slip in this regular legendary legs instead of something like Tybalt's Will for more damage. It works beautifully. And then past that, everything just sort of fell into place with the right items and the right stats, and I cannot wait to present it to you. But that's the kind of general thinking here that I thought you might find interesting, and how it all flows. The conjurations summon Frozen Orbs that lower the cooldown of your conjurations, that then summon more Frozen Orbs that then lower the cooldown of your conjurations, and so on and so forth, which is why you get this ridiculously perpetuating cycle by literally just spawning Lightning Spears and Icy Blades. That's all I'm doing. I am stood here just pressing 2 buttons, and it is endless and infinite without getting anything else involved. It's so good, and I am so proud of this one. I really, really am. I didn't think my contender for Magnum Opus would happen so soon in the season, but yeah, here we are. Without further ado then, let's get into the skill tree. We start with your lovely 2 familiar points in Firebolt, and yes, that is going to be your first enchantment. We're not going to use Hydra burning because we can't get Hydra to burn everything. Like, it just can't handle it by itself. We need to have that burning everywhere, so the Firebolt does get used, and then we save the points going into Hydra to actually make that burn happen. We then go on to our core, where we fill out Frozen Orb. Again, we might as well have it doing as much damage as possible because we have the points to make that happen. And then we take Enhanced, and that's it, because we don't need either of these. We have Infinite Vulnerable from our Conjurations, and we have Infinite Mana from, well, our Conjurations, stacking Conjuration Mastery, and also we don't actually need to cast Frozen Orb that much. Then we go on to Defensives, where we get Teleport into Enhanced, and then Shimmering for the DR. There is seriously so much damage reduction in this build, it's so tanky. Now, technically, I have 2 points here. This one floating point you can put wherever you want. I've chosen to simply lower the cooldown of Teleport, and that's that. 3 out of 3 into Glass Cannon, it's just free damage, why not? Then Ice Armor into Enhanced, and then finally Mystical. We may as well do this, as it's a little bit of a damage increase, and we just don't need Shimmering, because we're not actually spending a crazy amount of mana, because we're not actually casting Frozen Orb that much, and also we have so much cooldown reduction that we can basically Ice Armor anyway, all of the time. Then 1 in Elemental Attunement, as resetting these is never a bad thing. Over to Conjuration, where it's all happening. Initially the double defensives. Mana Shield we still take, because we are casting it enough that it will be up most of the time, and there's nowhere else to really put the points. Then Protection for just permanent Infinite Barrier. You gotta remember that these 2 count as a cooldown, and with them having no cooldown, you literally never don't have this hefty barrier. It's ridiculous. So we do get Ice Blades into Enhanced, and then Summoned. We have them as the second enchantment slot. It's arguably a little bit overkill, because with this having such little cooldown when everything's rolling, you can reach the cap of 6 Ice Blades fairly easily, but at the same time, I find it really helps you get up to speed really fast, especially at the start of a fight, and on a boss fight especially, so I've still got it in, but you could technically play around with this enchantment slot. Then we have a Lightning Spear, of course. We don't need actually points in it because it's the aspect, not the skill itself that's doing the damage. Enhanced for that lovely extra Lightning Spear, so an extra instant stack of Conjuration, and the crit chance. Then Invoked, so it stuns everything as it goes. Lovely Conjuration Mastery, such a ridiculously good passive, so much damage, capped movement speed, capped crit instantly because of Esus, it's just ridiculous. And obviously 9 ranks is hilarious. Over to Mastery, where all we need is the payoff of Burning in Devouring Blaze for that lovely extra crit damage. Crit is everything here. Then we head over to our ultimates, where, yeah, we get the triple of Hoarfrost, Permafrost, and Icy Touch, because we might as well, right? The Frozen Orb is still here, there's still a lot of them. Let's make them do as much damage as possible on top of the Lightning Spear. We're not, like, losing anything to actually have these in, while still making the build sing. Then we go over to Causing Currents, and then Electrocution, just for that extra damage reduction. Lastly, we grab Unstable Currents with Prime for the attack speed, and then our key passive in Via's Mastery. It's one of the reasons I'm so happy I've made this work without the cooldown reduction of Overflowing Energy, because Via's Mastery is awesome, and being able to use Via's Mastery without compromising on the number of Lightning Spears is really what solved boss damage, and the main innovation that I'm very, very happy with here. So that is your skill tree. Now then, we move on to gear. And you'll notice I said that in a kind of way, because the gear requirement for this build is a little bit up there. Now, it's not insane. It's nowhere near Infinite Flame Shield last season levels. You don't need to get insanely lucky on Tempers or Masterworkings or anything, but just the pieces of Exodia to put together might take a little bit of farming. The thing is, though, you don't need, like, perfect affix rolls and high rolls and stuff. If you just have the right pieces and put them on, the build will perform phenomenally. It just gets better and better and better exponentially, so the better gear rolls you do get. So the ceiling is so high here, but you can certainly just slap everything on that you have and enjoy the results. With that said then, gems-wise, critical strike damage, I don't even have enough fragments for max royals gems everywhere, and it's still this good. In any case, you want crit damage in your weapon, you want either intelligence or your rubies for health in your armor. You need to choose the right blend for you. For me, it's 3 and 2. I feel a little bit too squishy in tier 8's infernal hordes if I don't have a little bit of extra health to make my permanent barrier bigger, though I could probably squeeze a little bit more of. Technically, the perfect version of this build, as we'll get to, should have Tyrael's chest, not just this random legendary, and at that point I could probably put in another intelligence gem, but just so you know. And then in your jewelry, you kind of don't need anything. You can leave them empty. You will be armor capped, and you will be all res capped without them helping, though technically if you don't have Shaco yet, then you do want skulls in there. So, actual aspects then, because there's only technically 3 of them, though there only should be 2. The ring wants to have frozen orbit, so we get those additional explosions, lots more damage, and it fuels the build. And then finally, you want specifically a staff with splintering energy, the main workhorse of everything that's going on. If you are using a normal chest like me, because you don't have Tyrael's yet, which you really do want with this, I can't stress that enough, it's a huge help to the build, and as soon as I get it, like, imagine with what you've already seen, you want concentration, as it's essentially as good DR-wise. Tyrael's is just obviously a lot more damage without losing any of that damage reduction. We have permanent conjurations coming out, so permanent concentration. And of course, on your legs, we have Orange Herald to help fuel your unstable currents, and that really is one of the secret sources of the build. Unique-wise then, we want to have Esu's Heirloom for the crit chance with all of our movement speed. We get capped movement speed with all the ranks of Conjuration Mastery, so this gives us at max roll that sweet 40% crit chance, which is amazing. It is what lets us get to 100% crit chance. I'm currently set at 47, an extra 40 from Esu's Heirloom, on top of the 15% that Lightning Spear just gets. If I upgraded my gear Masterworking a little bit more, we comfortably sit at 100, and yes, this ridiculous critical strike damage bonus. In any case, we then want ourselves Tal Rashes, as we want the cooldown reduction especially, but obviously it's still a load of damage to have it, so let's take righteous advantage of that on top of the non-physical damage, maxing out our legendary Paragon nodes with Fractured Winterglass helping, so we don't need to use the Enchanter Glyph, so we can get even more damage when it comes to our Paragon board. Then we have ourselves Fists of Fate, the newly buffed Fists of Fate. This is amazing. Lucky Hit is obviously quite good for the build because of Fractured Winterglass. It's not like critical, but it really does help. And then attack speed is great, critical strike chance is great, and an average of a 50% damage increase across the board is really great. Honestly, the crowd control's also awesome. On top of everything flying around, nothing can move unless it's a boss or unstoppable. This thing really, really gets the job done, but obviously it's a very RNG drop, so if you don't have Fists of Fate or a good one, then simply use a Storm Swell or Shredding Blade gloves with attack speed and critical strike chance. Then we have ourselves the big one. It is your Fractured Winterglass. Now, I, of course, have gotten very lucky here with a GA on the cooldown reduction, which really does help on top of the +6 to Conjuration Mastery, but of course, it's not required. But this is what I'm saying. When you reach the critical mass of affixes, especially on your Winterglass, it just goes nuclear. But it certainly still functions lovely if you don't have this. I realize it is quite the thing to get, and it's really, really lucky that I have. Then, in your uber unique realms, you want your Shaco for that ridiculous amount of cooldown reduction. It obviously makes a huge difference in a big spam your skills build. If you don't have it, then you instead want your Godslayer, also cooldown reduction, and the extra damage for bosses is really nice too. And then, as I said, your other mythic uber, if you have it, you want Tyrael's chest. Alright. Affix-wise, on the 2 pieces that matter, you want very specifically attack speed, critical strike chance, critical strike damage. There is no better trio for you to get on your ring, though intelligence instead of attack speed is also just fine. Then on your staff, you want intelligence, health, and critical strike damage. That is pretty much it, and honestly on a staff that is fairly easy to get. If you are using a normal chest like me, then intelligence and maximum life, you don't need the mana per second, that can be anything else that you want. Affix-wise here, intelligence, maximum life, and any given third affix. If you don't have Shaco and you're using Godslayer, then you do want an armor roll on both your legs and your chest, so you are armor capped, and then your skulls come in a lot more importantly too. Tempering, then there's only 3, maybe 4 items to do so let's get into it. You want Lightning Spear cooldown reduction and critical strike damage on your ring. On your staff, you want chance for Lightning Spear to have an extra one when you cast it, and critical strike damage. On your legs, you want warmth, and then you want either ice blades or Lightning Spear lucky hit chance, and then finally you also on your chest want warmth, and then either a random CC or Lightning Spear or Ice Blades lucky hit chance. Masterworking, as you might imagine, hit your cooldown reductions, hit either Conjuration Mastery or the cooldown reduction on your Fractured Winterglass. Everything else is just do the best you can with a focus on critical strike damage. When it comes to how to play this then, I mean, essentially you just press all your buttons as fast as possible while you just walk through or stand there and watch everything die around you. So you've entered, you get a couple frozen orbs going to start with, pop your unstable current, start everything going, and then you're already there. You can pretty much just spam your lightning spear and spam your ice blades and have this permanent conjuration army. If there's ever a moment of downtime, then do feel free to cast an extra frozen orb, but you really don't need to. You just literally walk around dodging things on the floor that are going to explode while hammering a lightning spear and ice blade, and then everything will automatically get evaporated. It's really simple, straightforward, looks spectacular, and it is so much fun. Paragon board then, and this I am particularly happy with just how much I've managed to squeeze in, both powering up Frozen Orb and Lightning Spear. Stick with me then as we head up and right through the usual Elementalist to the Glyph slot, and then we get and activate the usual Reinforced. Grabbing Erudite, though technically you could get away with not having it specifically. It's 1 point, it's a bit of intelligence, you might as well. Then we head up through Elemental Balance into Enchantment Master, Glyph in the bottom right, initially going left for Elementalist again, and then heading right through the intelligence down to Elemental Balance, over to the Glyph where Elementalist resides, and then activating it as we leave, while also grabbing Erudite again for the intelligence more than anything. Up to the next board, which is going to be your Burning Instinct board for that lovely burning synergy. We want to head straight down and then get yourself Cinders, going right, getting all of the decks along the way to the Glyph slot where we have Destruction. Critical strike damage is everything to this build, so we of course want to max this out as much as we can, and if this was level 21, oh, even more power. Going down to Smoldering Embers, mainly for the extra decks, and then we can leave via this gate here into the next board, which is going to be your Frigid Fate, also lovely and maxed out. Straight down, you want to have Oppressive in the top left, organizing wise, straight down to Weakness, also activate the Glyph, which is where we're going to put Conjurer for that extra 20% duration on our conjurations, so the longer everything lives, just the better it is. The longer we have stacks of Conjuration Mastery, and of course the more time all of it has to do damage, and then down to Chilling to activate it. Now at this point, this isn't level 15 yet. If it was, it would have a bigger radius and it would encompass this intelligence, which means I don't have to spend these 3 points as this would activate it, so you can put these 3 points anywhere else that you want. I just have them here just to kind of keep them occupied for now. Then we want to head right, go around, get said Frigid Fate, then continue right to this Willpower, head up for Guarded, and then into the next board, which is going to be your Elemental Summoner board. We want to keep going to this Intelligence, head up, and then grab Conjurer, grabbing the Dex to activate Exploit, where we now go into 2 different split directions. Firstly, though, go straight down and grab yourself Elemental Summoner, mainly for the cooldown reduction, but hey, the extra damage is certainly not not bad too. Then we want to go north through the intelligence into this dex on the right, and then to this gate where we find ourselves Ceaseless Conduit. You want to arrange it so the glyph is at the bottom right, head through the dex on the way to it, and this is where we have a Flame Feeder. We have the points, so we may as well grab Galvanic Catalyst for the 10% lightning damage, and then we continue on through the dex as we go into the final board on this side, which is going to be your Static Surge, mainly just for yet another glyph. Heading down this way through all of the decks, we may as well grab Incapacitate, and the glyph here is Tactician. This is always going to be up, another 10% multiplicative, why not? So that's already, well, 7 glyphs online and all the legendary nodes we need, so hey, let's just go right from this dex here on the exploit board all the way to this final little bonus, which is going to be Icefall. This is just a Frozen Orb, but we have the points, so hell, why not? Let's get 50% more damage on our Frozen Orbs. Heading straight up initially to Cryomancy that we do grab, then passing by and getting said Icefall. So yeah, this is just amazing to me. So many legendary nodes, all the ones that we need, 7 active glyphs, and just a lot of power. That then, ladies and gentlemen, is that. A ridiculous build that I'm immensely proud of, that really gets the job done, combines Frozen Orb with Splintering Energy that essentially don't really need to exist as 2 separate builds now, because combined they are better than either of them, so this is a lovely merging of power that is just, I mean, it speaks for itself, doesn't it? It really does. I cannot recommend it enough. It is definitely going to be in the running for one of the best builds of the season, full stop, never mind Sorcerer's likely best builds, but of course the testing will never stop, and I still want to bring you all of the good stuff like Meteor and Fireball, and you know, we have so many good options this season. For now though, let me know what you think, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.